In this lesson, we're going to use modules in the context of namespaces. Most programming languages now have the concept of a namespace that you can utilize. What a namespace does is it allows us to have identifiers with the same name, but identified or created in a different context, so that we might have the same method name, print, in the context of one type of object and have another print in the context of another type of object. As long as those two names are in separate namespaces, then there's not a conflict. So let's take a look at how we do that in Ruby using a very simple example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create two greetings, a familiar greeting and a greeting for a stranger. And I'm going to put each one of those into a separate module. Then I'm going to demonstrate how to call them from the same program, treating them more or less as namespaces, although really in Ruby it's a module, not a namespace, since we use the word module. So here's how we do it. First of all, we're going to create the two modules. For the familiar module, we're going to define the greeting. And that's all we have to do. So we'll save and exit that. Now let's create a greeting for a stranger. Notice how we use the module name as a qualifier before the method name. And I also did that with familiar. So in the familiar module, it was familiar.greeting. Now we'll save that. Now let's create a program to use that. We'll call it namespace. And so what we do is we require both modules. Then we can just print the greetings to demonstrate how they work. Since I've already used print, I'll put a new line between them and then print stranger.greeting. Let's save our program. Go back to the command prompt, clear the screen, and then run the code. And there are our two greetings. So here we have two methods with the same name, greeting, but we've defined them within separate modules or namespaces. Familiar for one and stranger for the other. And then we can use the same name, the same identifier, the same method name, greeting, in one program as long as we qualify it within the proper namespace. As you develop more complex programs, this will become more and more of a technique you want to use because you'll run out of names for identifiers, or to be honest, you want to use the same name over and over again. For example, print is very descriptive of what you're trying to do. So you might want to use print in several different places. I'm just using that as an example. So by breaking up your code into modules or namespaces, you allow the use of the same identifier name in many different places without worrying about conflicts. So that wraps up this second lesson on modules, in this case using them as namespaces. Now we're ready to move to the next lesson where we're going to talk about mix-ins, which allows us to perform something like multiple inheritance in Ruby.